Hello, thanks for watching. Okay, so I just want to press on just a little bit more with this issue of the relationship between dopamine and serotonin and the similarity between addictions and cluster B, and how having the cluster B experience really is neurologically very similar to basically what's going on with people, maybe not in the addiction, but the thing that makes them have a weakness for addiction. I think we're dealing with very similar neurology, and I think it has very special problem. There are very special problems that come out of this neurology that fit very closely with the experience that most people talk about from cluster B. Okay, so in this video, I want to focus on the part of this balance between the serotonin and the dopamine that I think really produces the chronic emptiness, low self-esteem. Okay, I think that there are two different factors: the emptiness and the low self-esteem. I don't think they're the same thing at all. I think one of them is kind of like one of them is like a consequence of realizing that you're different, and how a human's going to feel when they know they're different. And I think the other is actually just a pure neurological phenomenon, the emptiness. Okay, so basically, I think the problem that we have, those of us who are susceptible to addictions and those of us who have the cluster B issues, I think what's likely going on, at least in my case, I believe, is an exaggeration of the inverse relationship between the dopaminergic and the serotonergic systems. Okay, the serotonin system, dopamine system. These are mechanisms that kind of run sort of in an inverse, a sort of a, they have sort of an inverse relationship, but that I think that I know, at least in my family, my brother and sister, they're very dopamine seeking. They're very sensation seeking. But what makes them not have cluster B is that with all their pleasure and all their enjoyment and satisfaction and gratification, as they increase their dopamine, I don't see their serotonin really bottoming out like it does for me, and how I've seen with other people who I think do have cluster B and addiction issues. Okay, so in the case of my brother and sister, they can live a life of just almost complete dopamine. That's their lifestyle. And yet their serotonin doesn't bottom out or disappear, and that gives them that stability, the ability actually to live in a world of, call it the Las Vegas world, or the world of just enjoyment all the time. For some people, that's not going to be a good recipe. Okay, that's really going to kind of destabilize their neurology. And unfortunately, I grew up in a house where even my parents, they sort of do live on the sensation seeking side. They're not really into just being calm and boring, and I guess a lot of families are like that. And my brother and sister, they adapted very well to that. And for me, it was just completely destabilizing because I just don't have that. And it's sad. It's sad, but that's my limitation. And like I said, my brother and sister, they could enjoy, being attracted to their first crush, when they were in their elementary school. Whereas for me, it destroyed me. Just having a crush on somebody really destroyed me. I felt like it was like having a blender, like blend my brain, and I became like a withering piece of just I was reduced to something that wasn't even human, just by having a crush. That's kind of sad, and I probably needed like some real coaching on how to handle those feelings, because I guess my dopamine dynamic, as the dopamine starts to spike, I just crash on the serotonin. That's kind of my experience. I'm probably just using metaphors. I'm not a scientist, but I think that's kind of what's going on. And I couldn't have the enjoyment that, say, my brother and sister could have, where they could actually honestly enjoy those things. And for me, it was crushing. I guess the word crush really meant crush for me, because I was crushed. And everything like that. And I think, to be honest, I think everybody wants to try to uplift the cluster B people to say, "Oh, don't feel so bad. Your self esteem is just something you're producing in your head. You're not really a bad person." Well, of course, now I don't think anybody's a bad person, but I do think that the self esteem issues will arise. Okay, they will come out. when a person has, let's say, a real imbalance in their neurotransmitters, if you lose the serotogenic system, okay, the serotonin, if the serotonin, how do they say it? The serotonin, they call it the serotonergenic, yeah, whatever. If you lose the serotonin system, if that bottoms out enough, I think you're actually losing a part of yourself. Okay, a part of your humanity is like is being dormant, where it's like it's dead. Now, I think we as humans, I think we're designed to feel bad about ourselves if something's wrong with us. Especially if we feel like we're not human. I think we should feel bad about that. And so I think that in a sense, I'm not celebrating that we feel bad. Okay, I think we should seek to feel better. I think we should seek to awaken more. But it actually makes perfect sense that you're going to feel bad about yourself if you feel like you're a monster or you're not human, or you feel like there's a part of you that's that's gone. I mean, I think it's normal for us to feel bad about that, and maybe there should be a stigma, but only because maybe it's natural that humans have a stigma about a person that's missing something, very crucial in their humanity. You know, maybe the problem is that we don't really have ready tools to get it back. We don't really come to people like this, like offering them some knowledge and some strategies to just get it back. It's more like we have to go through the ritual of despising them and just leaving them to fend for themselves. Like look at what happens with the people who are sex offenders. No, of course, like I'm not against, like I'm not taking a pro anti-victim or pro perpetrator. What I'm saying is that, yeah, we can accept that it's terrible to be abusing people. It's terrible to be in the place where you're so inhuman that your dopamine seeking has so dominated you that you've lost the other part of your humanity. I mean, that's terrible. But why can't we, why do we have to detain ourselves just having the celebration of how terrible they are and how we just want to, eliminate them from society? I mean, of course, there should be conditions for them to participate in society, but why can't we have more ready to hand? Why don't we have more ready a program, or at least a philosophy or a theory to get them back? I think that's where psychology has really abandoned the public, because any psychologist who says, oh yeah, we have that, well then why don't they make that more public and ready to talk about, as opposed to, well, they're just inhuman, let's get them out of it. Let's get them out of the picture. I think, maybe it's difficult. Maybe not everybody's able to get the recovery. But why don't we start by having something offered? Having a philosophy, a theory, and a method. Something where people really can get on the bandwagon and really try to recover. So I guess. It rings very terrible, to talk about, how, yeah, people should have low self-esteem, because we live in a world where there's no consolidated, generally understood method to get out of it. So I can understand both sides, but I really do think in the end, to be real, we should be real. I guess a person probably ought to feel bad, if a very important part of their humanity seems missing, or if they don't really feel honestly like a full human being. Okay. I guess that's the crisis, and the drama of feeling terrible about yourself. That's part of the package, That what's missing is here's a way to get out of it. Okay, and I think also there is kind of a little bit of a racket with the therapy, because I think, isn't it interesting how if I need to fix my car, yeah, I can go to a mechanic, but if I want to read the manuals and I want to fix my car, I can do that too. Why are we so mysterious about the manuals and the theory of what's going on with us? I think maybe the, sorry to say, but maybe the industry of mental health finds it to their advantage to make it kind of mysterious. It's just the mysterious magic of therapy. I'm open that it's a good option, but we should also have the option to have a clear understanding of what's going on, and then a clear understanding of how we might, get out of that vicious cycle. So I guess I'm just here to say in this video that I think that the low self-esteem makes perfect sense. If you have an instability in your serotogenic and dopaminergic, serotonergic, whatever, the serotonin and dopamine, if you have that imbalance enough, if you're living too much in the dopamine seeking modality, and that becomes your vicious cycle, I think you're gonna lose the serotonin part of you, or at least it's gonna become so drowned out and so minimized that you're going to effectively be missing something in you. Okay, and I can say from my first experience that I didn't have that conception, but I knew there was something wrong with me. Okay, and I knew that I was really kind of in some cases even kind of a vile person, or a person who really was really missing a lot of elements of humanity, and really acting almost in some ways, in some moments, even despicable. And so I guess self-esteem, low self-esteem should be part of that. You know what I mean? I mean, that's, maybe it's not shame exactly, but who cares? It's only natural that you would feel bad about yourself. Now the question is, and then the emptiness. Well, the emptiness is just a product of being so much in the dopamine that when you don't, when you if you're the kind of person that crashes your serotonin mechanism, if you're just living in that dopamine world, you're going to be kind of almost depleting it too, and you're going to be living basically in chronic emptiness, seeking just little spurts of spikes in the dopamine, just to break the agony of being in that emptiness. So that emptiness is not really low self-esteem. That's really just the fact that you have your serotonin just basically bottomed out. Okay. So in a sense, it makes perfect sense. I mean, the low self-esteem, and the emptiness, these are not, in my opinion, they're really not so much psychoanalytic, uh, experiences. I mean, we want to create this psychoanalytic explanation, but it may just be a natural neurological, well, one is kind of an experiential reaction to having something wrong with you. Okay, the other is actually directly from the neurology. Okay, so what do we do with these things? And like I'm trying to say over and over again, and I think, again, if someone doesn't relate to what I'm saying, try something else. I'm just offering this as my experience, and believe me, I don't assume this is for everybody, but I think that on top of this, the therapy and all that, I think if we can understand that we are similar to the addicts, and that we have this kind of exaggerated relationship between dopamine and serotonin, I would think that the first strategy for somebody who really wants to try to get better is just to believe that the path is through the so-called boredom. Okay, that is like the last place you would think, but that is the path. Okay, believe it, even if you don't believe it. Believing what you don't believe, that's the world of faith. It is a little mystical. Maybe we can even add in a little shamanic or whatever, poetic, but believe it. Okay, that we have to cool down the dopamine business. Okay, that has not to zero. Nothing goes to zero, but you gotta cut it in half. Okay, and maybe if there are, like, say, some things like caffeine, cigarettes, coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, maybe a person with cluster B should, even though they're not really an addict necessarily, maybe to act as though they were an addict. Okay, and basically just enter into the program of, I'm going to go the zero alcohol, I'm going to go the zero caffeine, zero cigarettes. Why? I'm going to do this because it's going to be good for my mental health. Okay, so why not join Alcoholics Anonymous? When they say, "Hi, I'm John, I'm an alcoholic," well, you can just say, you can either lie and say I'm an alcoholic, or you can say I have mental issues where I need to be off alcohol. And just be honest, and that's a place where you can be honest. I think they're welcoming to people with mental issues, but the bottom line is to get the dopamine issues down, controlled by maybe getting the alcohol, the cigarettes, the tobacco, caffeine, maybe the fatty foods, whatever, and then just basically trust that if you can get that dopamine more balanced, that the serotonin is going to naturally express itself and have more room to come up, and then just play with that. Everybody can have experimentation, but obviously I think it's important to have the support groups, and to have maybe a sponsor, and probably I would say most people in Alcoholics Anonymous probably have some cluster B issues anyway. So it's not like you're really going to be so out of place. So I don't know. This is just an idea, but I really think that could address the issue of the low self-esteem and the emptiness. emptiness. Yeah. Thank you very much.